Gunners supporters, blows his whistle. George Moncur steps up and scores! Bottom corner of the net. The goalkeeper was very close, and it's George. He lets in a low cross, and that's been turned in. And Leyton Orient are back on level terms. He'll come to James. He shoots. Oh, and a goal from Tom James. That was a volley, and that was right. It's a low cross. It's an inviting cross, and it's been turned in by Theo Archibald, and he celebrates in front of the travelling faithful.
Good afternoon and welcome to Orient Live. The O's are back on the road this afternoon. They're looking to get back to winning ways as they face Tranmere Rovers, and we're absolutely delighted to be joined in the studio by Orient legend Joe Widdowson and London football journalist Brendan Pitcher. And boys, it is a very good chance to get back to winning ways today, and I think after last Stevenage we kind of want to dust off them cobwebs and forget about last week's performance.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would have said last week was the biggest game of the season. I think this week might be a real big one. It's got to be up there because you'll see what the team's made of today, because we need a reaction. It's been not the greatest of months so far, and with a few new fresh faces, hopefully Richie has worked on the training ground over the last week, and we can put things right today against Tranmere.
There has been a handful of changes, a couple of a debut today, two debuts, and in the midfield it's an interesting one that will be hard to call, and we'll come on to it shortly. But you imagine that will give the whole squad maybe a little kick that will let them know that their position in the starting 11, they need to fight for it, and might, as Brendan says, see a reaction.
Yeah, I think, fresh faces coming through the door is only going to give the team a boost. I think, like Brendan said, it's not been the best month so far, but sometimes, you go through these spells in a season where, circumstances go against you, injuries, suspensions, players not at the peak of their form. But it's just about how you deal with it. And I think, the new faces coming in will certainly give the team a lift. It will freshen things up, and hopefully it will prove positive today.
Well, Richie has opted to make a handful of changes following on from last Saturday's game against Stevenage, and as we've already said, there's a couple of debutants in there as well. So let's take a look and see how the O's are lining up this afternoon. So in goal for the O's, as always, is number 22, Lawrence Vigouroux. Returning after his suspension is number 2, Tom James. Starting out wide this afternoon is number 11, Theo Archibald. Also returning to the starting 11 is number 14, George Moncur. Making his debut is number 17, Jordan Leyden, making his first start in nearly a year. Wearing the armband is number 18, Darren Pratley. Also returning from suspension, starting at centre-back, what a sight, it's number 19, Omar Beckles. Leading the line again this afternoon is number 23, Charlie Kelman. In at left-back is number 32, Rob Hunt, and making his second start for the O's is number 33, Jamie McCart. And also making his debut after signing on loan from Bolton Wanderers is number 34, Kieran Sadlier. And on the bench for the O's is Reece Byrne, Adam Thompson, Paul Smith, Craig Clay, Harry Smith, Ruel Sotiriou and Ed Turns. So a few welcome faces there returning to the side, and a few new ones that will be exciting to see what they can do in a red shirt for the O's this afternoon. And I don't really know where to begin, Brendan, but let's start with the big one. It's Omar Beckles returning. I think every Orient fan is happy to see that.
Yeah, it's massive. I think I was a big part of, I think, the performance against Stevenage was due to, wasn't particularly their fault, Turns and McCart, but they hadn't played together. They hadn't even trained together for a very long time. It's hard to build up a relationship in that time, and there was a little bit of a lack of leadership, and that's Omar's biggest strength for me. I think he's a fantastic defender, brilliant on the ball, good recovery speed, but ultimately he's a brilliant leader. He really commands that back four, and I think that's what perhaps we missed at times against Stevenage last weekend.
And with Omar, Tom James also returning, and Rob Hunt in at left back, that's 3 out of 4 of the defence that have performed so well. And obviously McCart's slotting in there, but as a defender, and as McCart especially coming into that, how important is that, having a backline that knows each other's game and that consistency? We want to try and find that again. Yeah,
it's massively important. The defence has been pretty consistent throughout the season and been a massive part of keeping clean sheets and amassing points on the board. So it'll be important to have them back together, obviously, along with Loz in goal. And also for the new guy coming in, it will help to have a backline that's familiar with each other. To kind of guide him. Help him feel comfortable, help him feel settled, because obviously he's not just coming into the team, he's coming into the club. So he's still, learning about how Richie wants to play, learning about how his teammates play and operate. So that'd be really important for him, yeah.
And Vigouroux would have been, I'm sure, devastated to have conceded 3 goals. It's not often that we do that, but you'd imagine with, as you say, with that solidity is probably gone, and maybe not as tough opposition as Stevenage as well. Hopefully we'll see a more grounded defence.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you're looking back to last week, I think it was a little bit makeshift in defence. I think 3 of the 4 weren't the usual back 4 that have been so brilliant for us this season. And then you look at it today, and you've got 3 of the 4 that are playing are the usual back 4. And I think that could be the difference today. I know how good we've been defensively. That's been the building block from everything we've done this season. And when that kind of goes, we struggle as a team. So absolutely massive that we've got a really kind of comfortable back 4 in there, along with Jamie McCart, who hopefully will slot in well alongside Omar Beckles. I think Richie's kept that right-footed, left-footed partnership at the back, and hopefully he can just do the Dan Happy role in there, McCart.
We're seeing some of the new boys warming up there as well, and the defenders as well. And Joe, Tranmere away is on paper always a tough game, but that defence and despite their league position, they're still going to need to be on their game, and especially after what we've had the last week or so, they're going to need to really be on their game this afternoon.
Yeah, you're right. Tranmere away is always a difficult fixture. They always get good attendances. The crowds are, quite aggressive. They get behind their team, and it can be a little bit hostile at times there. So, like you said, they're not in the greatest of form, not having the best season so far. But home games they certainly do turn out in their numbers and really get behind the team and make it hard. And they like to make it tough for opposing teams. And the fact that they do get a lot of fans in will really kind of help spur them on today, Tranmere. So it will be a tough test for sure.
And we always say, and we've said all season, that the good defence is the basis of what we want to do. And we've got the solid defence, but it's a new look midfield. It's Jordan Leyden and Kieran Sadley starting, and don't really know how that's going to look, to be honest.
I'm excited. I think naturally it's probably easier to bed in a midfielder and an attacking player into your side straight from the off, rather than kind of last week we saw at Stevenage a lot of debuts in the back 4 and it disorganises things. I think this is a great opportunity for Leyden. I think it's his first start since 5th of February last year. Massive day for him, but it shows the trust Richie has in him. He's worked with him before. He's been a top midfielder at this level before. If he's over his injury, it could be a massive stroke getting him in. And then Sadlier is a really top sign. I think you just had to look at social media. All the Bolton fans basically saying he's been brilliant for us, but he just doesn't fit the system. Ever just didn't want to give him a go. And he's come in here. He's playing in a natural position for him out on that left hand side. I'd expect today. And what we've seen from Bolton fans and from his time is that he's a goal threat as well, and that's something we've perhaps been lacking. The goals from midfield. It's so important that those 3 players in behind the striker get on a score sheet when we're playing, and Sadlier can provide that today.
I think is it 19 appearances and 6 goals, mainly from the bench as well, which is fairly good going. But what are you expecting from him aside from the goals? We'll hear from Richie shortly, but as he's well aware, the goals haven't really been flowing recently, so you'd hope he'd had some of that. Yeah,
I think the goal threat is massive. I think he's just a really solid technical footballer, and I think those kind of players thrive in a Richie Wellens team. And I think if you look at his career, he's always played in and around like low Championship, high League One level. So I think it is a real bit of a coup to bring him down to League Two for this stage of the season. I think he's really going to add something to this team.
And he's also obviously returning, or he's joining the starting 11 with George Moncur returning in there. 2 similar players, those attacking midfielders. It's different to what we normally have with Smith and Archibald out wide, where it's all going through. So maybe do you expect him to, as we're seeing here, playing through the middle, playing some football, him and George Moncur, it could be a good link up there.
Yeah, you'd like to think that Sadly will settle in really quickly and hopefully combine well. And build up a good connection with Moncur and Theo. We often see that free bet there behind the centre forward are often quite fluid and interchange positions. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Sadly taking up different positions, perhaps playing more centrally, and Moncur maybe drifting out to the left or switching with Theo. But I think we've got to say in Richie's tenure at the club, the recruitment has been spot on. We know he's very particular and meticulous with his signings, and I'm sure Leyden and Sadlier will have been well thought through. Richie obviously both knows them very well, so I'm quite positive and looking forward to seeing them both in action.
Well, it will be exciting to see what the new boys can do for the O's this afternoon. I'm sure Richie will be hoping for big performance from his two debutants as well. So let's hear Richie's thoughts ahead of this afternoon's game as he talks to Luke Lambourne.
Gaffer, back into league action this weekend, a trip to Tranmere Rovers, and I guess first and foremost a chance to put the game from Saturday right.
Yeah, well, we were so disappointed over the weekend that we would have liked a Tuesday game to get out of our system, but we've had to wait, we've had to sit and suffer, we've had to take our medicine. It was a poor performance in terms of our energy, the way that we played. So where we've been to where we was on Saturday was nowhere near. And to be fair, we've reflected on it. We've gone through a few things, and the group, as they always do, have responded really well this week in training. And then we just go and try and put it right. It was just a good reminder that I went to Colchester, Salford last night, and Colchester have won the game easily. If you're not at it, doesn't matter if you're at the top of the league or the bottom of the league, you'll get beat in this league. You don't do the basics right. And we was playing a really good team away from home. We had a lot of things that are not quite going for us at the moment, and we're trying to find that consistency in our team selection. So no, good team Tranmere, really good League Two club, a club that historically, whenever in League Two, finishing in and around the playoffs or get promoted. So tough game, but one we're looking forward to.
Then going into Tranmere this weekend, maybe not the season they'd have hoped for so far, and you've only been 15, but obviously it's a tight league and they'll still have aspirations to be pushing off into the playoffs. So what can we expect from the game?
No, without doubt they'll be still thinking if they put a run together they can get in the playoffs. Mickey's a successful manager, won promotions with Fleetwood and with Shrewsbury, and obviously he's won promotions with Tranmere as well, so he's hugely successful, knows exactly what's required. And when I look at Tranmere's players in terms of positionally, they've got some really good players for the levels, so they'll be looking to try and put a run together to get in the playoffs. And again, I'll go back to it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you play. If you don't do the basics right, if you're not in the right positions, if you're too open and your work rate and your second balls, first but isn't right, then you can get turned over by anyone in this league. What we've got to make sure is we've been really, really good at doing the basics for the first half of the season, and we need to get back to that. And then we have players capable of scoring, players capable of special moments, and we're capable of scoring some really good goals as well. So let's get back to what our foundations were, and hopefully you hope that everything else will fill it from that.
Well, Richie wants to start going back to the basics, and as he said in that interview as well, we've not been scoring goals because maybe we haven't been creating the chances. As he says there, though, doing the little things right, that is what's going to need to be key today to maybe try and feed Charlie Kelman, and with the new boys and George Moncur return to the side. Do you think that's what's key to maybe getting a bit more luck this afternoon?
Yeah, I think the narrative has been from the majority of the fan bases that we need a new striker, the strikers aren't scoring goals. I think we're just not creating enough chances. I think that's the problem. I think Kelman, like Richie says in that interview, he's proven this season he's a really good finisher. We've just not been getting him in those goal scoring opportunities, and that's where maybe George Moncur today, it's a big day for him to kind of step up. We saw earlier in the season he's been brilliant in terms of creating chances and dictating play from that number 10 position, and he's just gone off the ball so slightly in the last month or two. If he can pick that up alongside Sadlier coming in, Theo coming back is absolutely massive. He's a brilliant player for us. I think Paul Smith has grabbed the headlines understandably, but Theo Archibald is probably second place for me in terms of player of the season so far, so massive to have him back.
Well, throw our minds back a little bit to when you were playing, Joey, back in the National League and when we won promotion, but I think it was a similar time in the season when we went on a mini run of games where we didn't score too many and we lost a couple to Salford and Ebbsfleet it was, and I think we brought in a couple of players in that January as well, and how do you find it when you're in these runs and when maybe things aren't quite going for you to dig deep and try and get some goals and get some wins?
Yeah, it's an interesting time because I feel like you learn a lot about yourself as an individual, also as a team. And it's tough because you go from being in good form, picking up results, and sometimes in football everything just seems to take care of itself. And you pick up you're getting yourself in a nice little run of form, and you're feeling good. And then all of a sudden you hit a little bump in the road, and then you might lose a game or lose a couple of games, and all of a sudden you're in a bad patch, and you're looking around thinking, like, who's going to get us out of it? What's going to happen? And I think, for me personally, looking back on my time here, Justin, the manager's massive, and I feel like it's these moments in the season where, like, managers really need to kind of like earn their corn, so to speak, and get amongst the group. And I remember Justin brought in a couple of new players. Jay Simpson came in and gave us all a real boost because he was a real special player. Didn't do particularly great, suffered with injuries, but like a really, really good player, good character. He tinkered with the formation a little bit, and there was also times where the starting 11 changed and stuff, and like you'd go into games thinking, we're not at full strength, but Justin would be so positive and so insistent that he would like demand a performance, and you look around thinking, we're not at full strength, but he'd be like, it doesn't matter. This is the team I've picked today. This is what's going to win us the game. And he was so strong in his belief that that message was passed on to the players. Do you know what I mean? And we in turn believed it because he was so confident, and he stood up and we followed suit. So I think this will be a test for Richie. And going from what I've seen so far, I'm sure he's definitely going to be inspiring the boys, and I'm sure he's got a few things in mind to try and help kind of just get the boys back into form again.
Well, hopefully the boys can hit some form this afternoon, but it is Tranmere Rovers standing in the way, and despite their fairly lowly league position, they're still going to be a tough test, that's for sure. But let's take a look at how Tranmere will be lining up against the O's this afternoon. So in goal is number 23, Matoush Hewlett, number 2, Josh Dakers-Cogley, number 5, Tom Davies, number 14, Jordan Turnbull, number 3, Ethan Bristow, 11, Josh Hawkes, number 6, Chris Merry, number 4, Lee O'Connor, 7, Kieran Morris, number 26, Harvey Saunders, and the captain, number 10, Kane Hemmings. And on the bench for Tranmere, Murphy, Jameson, Walker, Lewis, Chalmers, Mumbongo and Burton. So there's how Tranmere Rovers will be lining up this afternoon. And what are you expecting from them? I think it's quite hard to call. They've, as we've already said, the form has been a bit hit and miss. So what Tranmere Rovers side do you think are turning up today?
Yeah, they're up and down for sure. I think Richie makes a great point, and it leads into kind of the feelings of unrest about this team at the minute from their fan base in terms of when they're in League Two, they're a side that expect to be in and around the playoffs at minimum because they're probably a bit above it for their history and what they've done previously. So it's going to be still be a big test. Look, like I said, there's a bit of unrest around there. They haven't been, like you say, they're hit and miss, but they've got players on their day that can hurt us. Kane Hemmings is a player I really like. He's a good striker for the level. He's got 7 goals this season, and they do the basics quite well. I think they've only scored 1 goal less than us from open play in the league, and they've got the 3rd least conceded amount of shots in the league behind us and Stevenage. So they do the basics right. They've got a manager in Mickey Mellon that's been there and done it. So it's still going to be a tough test, despite the fact they're kind of languishing in the mid-table at the minute.
And as you said, they haven't kept many clean sheets. Their defence hasn't been too great. Hopefully, if we look at some of their goals, this is a defence that Orient and Charlie Kelman and Theo Archibald can try and regain some of that scoring form.
Yeah, definitely. They are a team that can see goals. They've shown that throughout the season, but at the same time, I also think they do have 1 or 2 players with good quality for their level. You've got Kane Hemmings there, Kieran Morris, really good players, and as Richie said there, if we aren't at our best today and do the basics well, compete, start well, you can get turned over by any team in this league. Tranmere are a big club in League Two. And with the support behind them today, they're playing at home. Every side at home playing in League Two will want to come out and have a go. So it'll be a test. We've played quite a few tough away games this season, and for the most part done pretty well. But I think today will certainly throw up some challenges, and I think it's important to really try and start the game well.
Looking at some of the goals conceded there, Brennan, is there anywhere you think Richie and his team will be looking to target and attack? I mean, there was a couple of very nice finishes in there, so a couple of them would be nice. But anything tactically you think we can target Tranmere with today?
I think it's just we've got to focus on us rather than kind of looking at the opposition. I think we've got to improve our chance creation. I think some goals would be nice. I think we've struggled for goals at the minute, and if we can do that, then I think the defence will be fine today. Fingers crossed. I think having that solidity at the back, it really, really helps, and then you can build from there and maybe try and nick a 1 or a 2-0 like we've done so many times this season.
well, we've got just over 5 minutes until kickoff. So don't forget, if you're watching along live on our YouTube stream, UK fans, you can listen along on Orient Live with Matt Hiscock and Dave Victor. Or if you're an international fan, you can pick up your match streaming pass over on the website that is on screen now. And let's remind ourselves of how the O's are lining up to face Tranmere Rovers this afternoon. So in goal for the O's is number 22, Lawrence Vigouroux. That's not Orient, that's Tranmere. But in at right back, he's returning from suspension, is number 2, Tom James. Starting in the starting 11 again. Out wide is number 11, Theo Archibald. Also returning to the side is number 14, George Moncur. Making his debut, playing his first game in nearly a year, is number 17, Jordan Leyden. In wearing the armband is number 18, Darren Pratley. Also returning from suspension is number 19, Omar Beckles. Leading the line is 23, Charlie Coleman. And in at left back is number 32, Rob Hunt. Making his second start for the O's is number 33, Jamie McCart. And starting in the midfield, number 34, Kieran Sadlier. And on the bench for the O's is Reece Byrne, Adam Thompson, Paul Smith, Craig Clay, Harry Smith, Raoul Sotiriou and Ed Turns. Now, we haven't even spoken about one of the best players in the league this season being put on the bench, but do you think maybe that is a sign from Richie that no one in this side is undroppable? We haven't been scoring goals. Everyone's got to earn their place, and the new boys are getting a chance today, so everyone's got to fight for it.
Yeah, of course. I'm not too sure what what's gone on behind there. I don't know if there might be a little injury, doubt, or something around Paul Smith, but certainly there's no doubt Sadlier is a good footballer. He's played at a good level. He's got a really good pedigree. And sometimes sometimes the manager might just want to freshen up the team, just to maybe give Paul Smith a reminder that he does have to fight for his place. Perhaps he just wants to, just try something different. So, I'm sure Paul Smith will play an important part in the game today at some point. If he's fit enough to. But he's certainly being replaced by a good player, and be interesting to see what he brings today, Saturday.
I'm reading out the starting 11 there. I've said a couple of times that someone was returning from suspension. Idris El Mazouni's also out suspended this afternoon. Discipline maybe has dropped off a little bit in recent games. Maybe that coincides with Omar Beckles not being in the back line, but I don't know. But that discipline and that keeping your heads will need to do that again. Yeah,
for sure. You never want to go down to 10. That's obvious. But I look at the side today. There's a lot of experience flowing through it. I think that comes with Beckles, but also bringing in Leyden for El Mazouni. That's an older player in terms of replacement. And there's a lot of League Two promotion winning experience. And I think perhaps maybe a little bit of complacency came in terms of the last month or so. We were having it our own way, probably a little bit too much. That defeat against Stevenage hopefully has rolled them up a bit, and there's a little bit more fire in their belly going into this game.
Well, the players are ready and waiting in the tunnel, ready to come out onto the field. So it is time now to hand over to our match commentary team of Dave Victor and Matt Hiscock.
And welcome to Birkenhead, where it's overcast, it's not too chilly, and it's a big game for both these sides. Tranmere looking to close the gap on the playoffs. They haven't won in their last 3. Leyton Orient have only won once in the last